that we work so hard to do. But it's just a certain division that needs to be brought to everyone's attention and understanding that, no, this is something that's been going on, and it's just getting to a point where it's like, all right, now enough is enough. I think that's
enough is enough, man. Enough is enough, man. Yeah. Yeah, enough is enough.
The larger conversation that needs to be had that is really above us, and I think that is the part that we really need to get to. So hopefully at All-Star, we can have an opportunity and a conversation, because at this time, we something needs to change.
At All-Star, they want to have an opportunity and a conversation. That's what I was alluding to in the beginning. They're going to walk into Caitlin Clark's room.
We can sit back and we can watch what's happening to Caitlin Clark. And they know how they're treating her, why they're treating her that way.
She became a roadshow. And I don't know that, and I don't want to slight anybody in college, but I don't remember seeing that in my time. And that's held true. We've wanted a player or a league that can, sort of transcend some of these spaces and have a roadshow. The NBA has had their players that people come to see, right? So when the Wolves sell tickets, there are certain games that they know people are going to come watch certain players. Caitlin Clark and some of the other rookies give us that. Obviously, Caitlin, being.
Today, I've got another exciting and highly interesting video for you. And if you're a true Caitlin Clark fan, you'll definitely want to watch until the very end. I always enjoy seeing all the amazing Clark fans in the comments, so thank you for your support. Now, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into today's topic. The WNBA is already filled with tension, and recent reports suggest things could become even more intense following Cheryl Reeve's latest decision. According to rumors, Aya Wilson is not taking the situation well in the All-Star locker room. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Surprisingly, more than 93% of viewers haven't subscribed yet, and it only takes a second while making a huge difference for the channel. Now, back to the story. The WNBA All-Star Draft has officially wrapped up, and Team Collier features one of the biggest stars in basketball today, Caitlin Clark, widely recognized as the face of the league and one of the greatest young talents the women's game has ever seen. This weekend, Cheryl Reeve will coach one of the two All-Star teams in Chicago, and reports indicate she may be considering Caitlin Clark as the team captain. Traditionally, that honor goes to a veteran leader or a multiple-time MVP, but Clark's incredible popularity, sold-out arenas, merchandise sales, and television ratings have made her impossible to ignore. As the league celebrates its 30th season, Reeve appears to understand the impact Clark has had on women's basketball. Clark recently delivered one of the greatest performances in WNBA history, exploding for 45 points and 10 assists against the Seattle Storm while setting a franchise record for the Indiana Fever. She became the first player in league history to record at least 45 points and 10 assists in a single game, accomplishing the feat despite playing fewer than 30 minutes due to a minutes restriction. It wasn't simply a hot shooting night. It was a performance that showcased her ability to dominate every aspect of the game at a level few players have ever reached. Her teammates also contributed with strong performances, making it a memorable night for the Fever. Meanwhile, social media has been buzzing with reactions, as fans continue to debate Clark's rise and respond to critics who questioned whether she could live up to the enormous expectations surrounding her. The excitement surrounding her All-Star selection and recent historic performance has only added more attention to an already dramatic WNBA season. They're going to tell Caitlin Clark, "You're not leaving this room until you come out and denounce those pesky fans of yours." This is where things begin to turn ugly. According to reports, Aya Wilson has requested a meeting with the players, and after a series of controversial interactions with officials that have fueled weeks of debate among fans over who truly gets the benefit of the doubt from referees, many believe the discussion is aimed directly at Clark. Fans have also pointed out the irony. Clark's complaints to officials quickly became national headlines, complete with opinion pieces and endless media coverage, while Wilson's own heated exchanges with referees received little attention. Before the two even share the same bench this weekend, tension is already building, and that's before considering the captaincy situation. Critics have also highlighted how Angel Reese has been seen arguing aggressively with referees, with many saying the same behavior is praised as passion, while Clark is criticized for showing frustration after what supporters believe were obvious missed calls. That perceived double standard has only intensified the debate. With a players' meeting already scheduled and a captaincy decision creating even more controversy, this has become a situation where the two stars can't simply keep their distance. For the WNBA All-Star Game, Held as part of the league's 30th season celebration in Chicago on July 25th, Wilson and Clark are teammates, meaning they'll share the same bench, locker room, game plan, and potentially deal with lingering tension throughout the weekend. Many believe that combination could make for an uncomfortable atmosphere rather than a celebratory event. Some fans have also criticized a recent magazine feature, arguing that while Aya Wilson was honored, the accompanying discussion unnecessarily shifted focus toward Caitlin Clark by criticizing both her fans and her accomplishments. They argue that Wilson's recognition should have stood on its own without bringing Clark into the conversation. This controversy traces back to Wilson's interview with Time magazine in December, where she said the excitement surrounding Clark's rise temporarily overshadowed the history of the WNBA. Wilson explained that her frustration wasn't aimed personally at Clark, but rather at the fact that many fans overlooked the players who built the league long before Clark arrived. As a 4-time MVP and 3-time champion, Wilson has every right to speak about the league's history and legacy. However, critics argue that continuing to revisit the subject has only fueled more division and intensified an already heated debate among fans. Aya Wilson seems to appear in nearly every major media cycle surrounding Caitlin Clark, whether it's a magazine feature, an award ceremony, or a routine press conference. At the same time, many people who know Clark personally continue to describe her as both an exceptional player and an exceptional person whose primary goal is simply becoming the best basketball player she can be. They argue that she has unfortunately become what NBA Commissioner Adam Silver called a political football, with debates surrounding her extending far beyond basketball itself. Silver suggested that much of the controversy isn't really about officiating or individual incidents on the court anymore, but rather about the larger cultural conversations that have formed around Clark's popularity. According to him, it is unfair that a young player trying to improve her game has become the center of so many unrelated debates. His comments reveal an important reality. Clark is no longer viewed solely as a basketball player, but as a symbol that different groups use to support competing narratives. This also wasn't the first time Silver stepped into the conversation. Following Kennedy Carter's hard foul on Clark during the 2024 season, he described it as a welcome to the league moment while emphasizing that physical play is a normal part of professional basketball. Since then, Silver has consistently tried to balance protecting the league's rapid growth, much of which many associate with Clark's arrival, while avoiding actions that could create even greater controversy. Meanwhile, the announcement of the All-Star Captains immediately ignited another wave of debate online. Supporters of Clark argue that she has become the league's biggest attraction, pointing to ticket sales, television ratings, merchandise, and overall fan interest as reasons she deserved the captaincy. Others believe Wilson was already trying to quietly manage team dynamics ahead of the scheduled players' meeting and that the captaincy decision only intensified an already tense situation. The reason the discussion continues to dominate headlines is because both perspectives contain elements that many fans find reasonable. As excitement builds for the All-Star Game, fans are equally focused on Indiana Fever stars Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell, alongside veterans such as Natasha Howard, Paige Buchers, Jess Shepard, Gabby Williams, and Aya Wilson. For several players, earning another All-Star selection marks an impressive milestone, as very few athletes can claim to have been named an All-Star in every season of their professional careers. Adding even more attention to this year's event, the WNBA celebrated its 30th season by changing the traditional roster selection process. Instead of a standard draft, league legends Cynthia Cooper and Teresa Weatherspoon served as honorary general managers, selecting the All-Star teams live on ESPN, turning the roster announcement itself into a nationally televised event and creating even more anticipation ahead of the game. As a result, every decision made during this All-Star weekend, including the captain selections, will receive far more attention, cameras, and public scrutiny than a typical exhibition game. There is no quiet or discreet way to hand Caitlin Clark the captain's armband instead of Aya Wilson. Every choice happens live on national television, and within minutes millions of fans will have formed an opinion. Meanwhile, Clark's teammates continue to praise her performances on the court. Speaking after another standout game, one teammate described one of Clark's deep three-pointers as the kind of shot that leaves everyone in disbelief, saying it was one of those nights where everything seemed to be falling into place. She added that Clark's ability to finish through contact was impressive, and because she was trailing directly behind the play, she had the perfect view as Clark energized the entire arena with another highlight. Over the past 2 seasons, Clark's teammates in Indiana have witnessed the non-stop media attention and outside drama surrounding her firsthand, yet most have chosen not to engage publicly, instead allowing their chemistry and results on the court to speak for themselves. In that same game against Seattle, Kelsey Mitchell scored 30 points, while Clark added 45, combining for 75 of Indiana's 110 points. Throughout the game, Seattle consistently sent double teams at Clark, forcing the ball out of her hands whenever possible. From a coaching perspective, giving Wilson the captain designation can therefore be viewed less as a personal statement and more as a practical basketball decision made by someone trying to build the strongest possible lineup for a nationally televised exhibition that everyone will be watching closely. At the same time, many fans argue that Clark receives a different level of criticism than other players. They point to defensive highlights, crowd reactions, and her ability to energize arenas as evidence of her impact, arguing that her popularity has created resentment in certain corners of the basketball community. Wilson herself has previously acknowledged the unique atmosphere surrounding Clark, admitting in 2024 that she disliked playing in front of Indiana Fever crowds because of how loud, passionate, and heavily focused on Clark they had become. When that earlier comment is viewed alongside this week's reported captaincy decision and the request for a players' meeting, some observers believe it resembles an ongoing pattern rather than an isolated incident, with similar discussions resurfacing whenever Clark reaches another major milestone. At the same time, it is important to recognize that much of this conversation is driven by public speculation and fan interpretation rather than confirmed conflict between the players themselves. According to reports, Cheryl Reeve's decision not to select Caitlin Clark as captain was not intended as a slight toward Aya Wilson or as a statement about who the league's biggest star truly is. Many believe the decision came down to putting together the most entertaining showcase possible for a league celebrating its 30th anniversary. Supporters of Clark argue that she is currently the player who drives television ratings, sells out arenas, attracts the largest crowds, and generates enormous interest wherever she plays, making her a natural choice for a high-profile exhibition event. At the same time, no one disputes Aya Wilson's remarkable resume. With 4 MVP awards and 3 WNBA championships, she has firmly established herself as one of the greatest players of her generation. However, many fans point out that individual accomplishments and current market impact are not always the same thing. They argue that while Wilson's achievements are unquestionable, Clark's games have consistently produced unprecedented attention throughout the season, a reality that coaches and league officials cannot ignore when planning an event designed to maximize fan engagement. Others believe some veteran players have become increasingly frustrated with the shift in attention, framing the discussion around fairness, respect for the league's history, and recognition for those who helped build the WNBA over many years. Regardless of the wording, critics argue that the underlying challenge is adjusting to a new reality in which one player has become the center of an extraordinary level of public attention. Clark's performance against Seattle illustrates why that attention continues to grow. She scored 45 points while also recording 10 assists in fewer than 30 minutes, producing one of the most dominant individual performances of the season. Nights like that don't diminish anyone else's accomplishments. They simply reflect outstanding basketball. Meanwhile, conversations about player treatment have continued off the court as some veterans have spoken publicly about criticism, social media harassment, and negative messages they receive online. Others respond that dealing with criticism unfortunately comes with being a public figure and that abusive messages should be ignored or reported rather than becoming the focus of league-wide discussions. Throughout all of this, Wilson has repeatedly stated that she intends to focus on her own career regardless of the attention surrounding Clark or her fan base. On its own, that is a completely reasonable position, and Clark's popularity does nothing to diminish Wilson's standing as one of the league's elite players. At the same time, some observers argue that the topic continues to resurface in interviews often enough that it inevitably fuels further discussion. Whether intentional or not, repeated comments about the same subject naturally invite additional media attention and public debate. Ultimately, basketball remains the simplest way to settle these conversations. Every game provides another opportunity for players to demonstrate their abilities on the court, where performances speak louder than interviews, magazine features, press conferences, or social media debates. From that perspective, Clark has largely allowed her play to answer the conversation, choosing to focus on basketball rather than publicly escalating the ongoing controversy. After games, Caitlin Clark generally avoids responding publicly with subtle jabs or engaging in ongoing debates. Instead, she lets her performances speak for themselves. Night after night, she continues producing historic numbers, allowing the box score to tell the story rather than confronting every controversy head-on. Over time, many believe that approach is far more effective because consistent production naturally rises above the surrounding noise. That perspective aligns with Clark's own comments, as she has repeatedly said she pays little attention to outside opinions during the season. She explains that her focus remains on preparing for opponents, staying connected with her teammates, and doing everything possible to help her team succeed on and off the court. According to Clark, there are far more important priorities during the season than reacting to every headline or social media discussion. As the WNBA celebrates its 30th anniversary during All-Star Weekend in Chicago, Clark and Aya Wilson will wear the same uniform as teammates in a game intended to showcase the league's growth and accomplishments over the past 3 decades rather than extend the controversies that have followed both players since 2024. Even so, reports have suggested there could be a conversation between Wilson and Clark during the weekend, although it remains unclear whether that would be a private discussion or simply another topic addressed through media interviews. Whatever happens, the combination of sharing the same roster, the captaincy debate, and the intense public attention makes it difficult for either player to completely avoid the conversation. Despite all the speculation, Clark supporters argue that her play this season has already answered many of the questions being debated. They point to her record-setting performances, sold-out arenas, increased television audiences, and the unprecedented attention surrounding the league as evidence of her impact. Some commentators have gone even further, arguing that Clark's popularity has significantly contributed to the WNBA's financial growth and future earning potential for players across the league. Others caution that the league's progress is the result of decades of work by many players, coaches, executives, and fans, with Clark representing an important new chapter rather than the sole reason for its success. Regardless of where people stand in that debate, there is little disagreement that Clark has become one of the league's biggest attractions and that her presence has helped generate a level of visibility unlike anything the WNBA has experienced before, making this year's All-Star Weekend one of the most anticipated in league history. Many supporters of Caitlin Clark argue that her arrival has marked a historic turning point for the WNBA, claiming her popularity has generated unprecedented attention, larger television audiences, stronger ticket sales, and greater commercial opportunities for the league. Some commentators have gone so far as to suggest that every player now has the chance to benefit financially from the increased visibility surrounding the sport, arguing that Clark deserves significant credit for accelerating that growth. Others disagree, emphasizing that the league's current success is the result of decades of work by generations of players who helped build the WNBA long before Clark entered it. Regardless of where someone falls in that debate, Clark has continued to respond the same way throughout the season, with her play on the court. Whether discussions take place in Chicago, in front of cameras, behind closed doors, or in conversations that never become public, her approach has remained remarkably consistent. She continues scoring at an elite level even when defenses throw multiple defenders at her, creates easy scoring opportunities for her teammates, and keeps producing performances that place her among the most statistically impactful players the league has seen. Her 45-point, 10-assist performance against Seattle was not viewed by many as a random outburst but rather as another example of the level she is capable of reaching when healthy and in rhythm. Meanwhile, if the conversation is truly meant to shift away from media narratives and back toward basketball, many believe the clearest way for any player to shape the discussion is through performance on the court. Rather than allowing interviews, magazine features, or public debates to define the story, the game itself ultimately provides the strongest answer. Basketball has always settled its biggest arguments through results, and when the final buzzer sounds, the only evidence that remains is the scoreboard, the statistics, and what each player accomplished between the lines.